too bad, but quite chilly elsewhere, lower than on Friday. Through the evening time, this band of rain will continue to push its way eastward. We could see some heavy bursts at times, some strong winds too, and then this will interact with the colder air across the mountains of Scotland, giving some snow, and then overnight showers follow. Under the clearer slots, temperatures down to around 4 or 5 Celsius, but for many 6 to 8 degrees, so not quite as cold as the night just gone. A wet start across eastern areas, the rain pushes out into the North Sea, blustery showers follow. Best of the sunshine across central and southern areas, showers most frequent across the north and the west, some hail, some thunder in there, still falling as sleet and snow over the higher ground of Scotland in particular. And it will feel quite chilly, temperatures highs around 11 or 12 in the southwest, but elsewhere struggling to get into double figures. And looking into the beginning of next week, it stays fairly unsettled. Longer spells of rain on Monday, followed by showers Tuesday and Wednesday. And temperatures generally stay around average for the time of year. I'll see you again soon.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning with me and Phil here. Now, coming up today, well, we all know about the situation at the moment with so many asylum seekers in the country and largely being put up at hotels. So the question is, should asylum seekers now be working? Well, we've got two guests coming on later. They're going to go head to head. One believes they should and one believes they shouldn't. What do you think?
And talking about asylum seekers, we've got David Davis, the former Cabinet Minister, coming on. He thinks he's got a solution to the problem of the migrants coming over the channel by dinghies. So
we need to know that, don't we?
Stay tuned to find out what that solution is. We're also going to be speaking to the EastEnders actor Jake Wood.
And I just don't know what all the fuss is about. So you can't get beer in stadiums in Qatar at the World Cup. You can get it anywhere else. You just can't get it in stadiums. Maybe we should be thinking that in the UK, that you can't get it when you're watching the footy too. Again, a bit controversial.
Controversial, yeah.
But, you know, you're in somebody else's country, maybe you should do what they want you to do.
And on that and everything else, as ever, we want to hear from you today. So to get involved in the conversation, email us on gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. But before we get into all of that, here are the latest news headlines with Ray.
Thanks, Esther. Phil. Good morning. It's 2 minutes past 10. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. The Foreign Secretary is warning that the threat from Iran's nuclear programme is more advanced than ever before. Speaking at a security conference in Bahrain, James Cleverly stressed Britain's determination to stop the strict Islamic country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. He also criticised Iran's rulers for supplying Russia with drones, which have been used to launch attacks against civilians in Ukraine.
As their people demonstrate against decades of oppression, Iran's rulers are spreading bloodshed and destruction across the region and as far away as Kyiv. Britain is determined to work alongside our friends to counter the Iranian threat, interdict the smuggling of conventional arms, and prevent the regime from acquiring nuclear weapons capability.
FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Following heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people, Gianni Infantino said he is compassionate towards all groups. He also accused the West of hypocrisy, saying European nations have a lot to apologise for, and they're not in a position to give moral lessons. Well, his comments come just a day after Qatar announced that it was introducing a stadium beer ban, a decision that's been welcomed by some sports fans in the country.
You need to respect our traditions. Alcohol is prohibited in Islam, so you cannot drink in front of Islamic people. So, yeah, we need people to respect our culture, but we respect their culture also. So we make some specific places there you can drink a beer.
I'm quite glad. I'm upset if people are upset, if they want alcohol to be sold. But no, I think for safety, I think that's a really good idea.
Delegates have failed to reach a deal at COP27, forcing an extension of the climate summit in Egypt. Talks this weekend will focus on how poorer countries affected by global warming should be compensated. 134 developing nations want a special fund to be set up to help them cope with loss and damage due to droughts, floods and wildfires. The European Union says it will back the demand, but countries including the US and China are yet to respond. Disruption continues in Scotland today following floods and power cuts caused by heavy rainfall. Much of the rail network has been affected, with ScotRail saying services in some areas will not resume before midday. Last night, a search was stood down after a woman was reportedly swept away into the River Don in Aberdeenshire. It's believed that she may have been trying to rescue a dog. Rest centres in eastern Scotland have been opened and flood warnings were escalated to severe. Elon Musk has launched a Twitter poll asking users if he should bring back Donald Trump. The former president's account was suspended after last year's attack on the US Capitol. Twitter's new owner has said before that he might reverse the ban. The poll is open for 24 hours and it's very close, with around 52% currently voting yes for his return. You're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Esther and Phil.
Thanks, Ray. We're delighted to be joined in the studio by the Deputy Editor of Conservative Home, Henry Hill, and broadcaster Claire Muldoon to go through the papers.
Good morning.
Claire, welcome.
Thank
Henry,
you.
welcome. What's caught your eye, Claire?
Well, in all the papers, it's Sunak, budget, police, and also Qatar and the World Cup. There's no getting away from it. We tried, but we're not getting away from it. However, the story that I've picked out is the predator wanted by police when he killed Zara, and that's obviously the heinous crime committed by Jordan McSweeney on Zara Alina in June of last year. Now, I don't want to focus on the ins and outs of the case, OK? And I don't want to focus on the terrible things that he did to that poor defenceless lawyer. What I do want to focus on, however, are the police failings in the timeline in Jordan McSweeney's life. 1 point. He was wanted by the police on not only one, but 28 prior convictions. He was released on licence on June the 17th. And then he wasn't found and he didn't turn up for his probation. 2 days later, he committed this crime. Now, Mark Rowley, the current Metropolitan Police Chief Commissioner, I think really has to take on board lots of things that have happened here. Not only does the Metropolitan Police, and I don't want to make this specific to the Met, I think this is a nationwide issue, and I'm very for law and order. However, the WhatsApp groups, the Sarah Everard murder, the inability, it would seem, for anyone to actually motivate and want people to join the police force through diversity, through socio-economic mobility, seems to be bereft. You know, there's nothing we seem to be able to be doing to filling the holes. The Met don't even interview their staff now. I covered a story last summer. They were doing their interviews over Zoom, and often the first time someone who wanted to join the police would actually meet someone face to face, guess when that was? When they were getting measured for their uniforms.
No, I think it is an issue. I mean, I've always been a big supporter of the police, and I think they do a fantastic job. They're often under-resourced. They're dashing from one thing to another and whatever. But there have been some really poor.
There are systematic failings
there are
in
some
the
really
system
poor failings,
that really have to be addressed.
No, I have sympathy with the police, because criminals are getting more sophisticated in a way, and they can disappear or they can connect better.
But Esther, it's when the police are becoming the criminals themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, and that's a separate issue. And then when you then say we want to recruit tens of thousands of police, this is what I was coming to, in a short space of time. You say crime's going up, the general behaviour of the public's getting worse, and we're going to recruit more police. Is there not a failing in that when you're driving to get so many in a short space of time, finding the people, when we know there's 500,000 people who've decided to stop working full stop in the UK?
In any industry, when there is a lack of talent, a lack of labour, to recruit like that, you're obviously going to funnel it, and you're going to get people who you don't necessarily would like.
Well, do you not think that when people who are up to no good, they look for professions where they're going to find the best cover, aren't they? Well, and so the police is a cracking cover for people, you know. So it is inevitable.
And that goes to Claire's point, though. You should do double the checks if you know, and not only that, a bad police officer causes a lot of trouble. And that's the issue you're talking about.
And I would far rather, as research has shown, if bobbies were back on the beat, it does cut crime.
Absolutely. Now, on that, before I come to Henry, because it's just a good segue into the story I saw in today's Daily Telegraph today.
See what I did there?
You did, Claire, brilliantly, if I might say so. So we've been giving the government quite a bit of stick recently, not least over the budget, so I thought I'd balance it a bit and give the Prime Minister some praise here, because on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, Rishi Sunak's talking about the fears for safety of women and sort of mentions his wife and daughters. But he said something which I found very, very refreshing. He said that he supported the prison population increasing as it was the logical conclusion from his tough stance on crime. He said, I want to reduce crime, and that means I want to make sure that we catch criminals. So that's probably a logical consequence of catching more criminals. Is going to be part of that. We should charge more people and reduce crime and have them in jail. And I say 3 cheers for the Prime Minister, because very few leading politicians will say, I want to send more criminals to prison.
You want to lock up criminals, is what you're saying, lock up.
However, I don't want to be too cynical, because there is no doom and gloom with Muldoon, but I'll tell you this. I think that they're being lobbied by the private security systems who are unfortunately running some of our prisons now.
Oh.
And I think that...
So you don't think... So you're very cynical there. Very cynical.
So you see, the thing is, we have this thing in... We always have this thing in this country that we send so many people to prison.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a complete myth. We send very few people to prison. It's very difficult to be sent to prison in this country. And I'm not suggesting you try it, but
well,
but it's very difficult. And you know, I asked the House of Commons Library to produce some information from me ages ago, which asked for as a proportion of crime, how many people get sent to prison. Do you know what? For every 1,000 crimes committed in the UK, we send 18 people to prison, which is one of the lowest rates in the world. In America, it's over 100 people.
But instead of looking at the rates of people being sent, why don't we look at what they're actually doing when they're in prison?
That's a different question, though.
There is that as well. But
we've got overpopulation in prisons, you know.
No. We need to help rehabilitate people when they're in prison.
Of course we do.
But the best way to stop crime is to put criminals in prison. It's not sending them to prison that's the problem. It's letting them out that's the problem.
And equally, if you have got them in prison, then you can rehabilitate them. You should have a period of time that you can rehabilitate them if you've got them there.
You can't rehabilitate some of them. And what I'm saying
but you've got to try with the others.
3 cheers for the Prime Minister wanting to send more criminals to prison.
Henry, have you got 3 cheers?
Well, I don't know about that. The story there's basically a basket of related stories which I looked at, which is the first is that the senior health service people are saying that the only way that we're going to clear the elective surgery backlog that we've got after COVID is if the health service can become a 7-day service. And some of the stories, the numbers about this are really remarkable. Apparently, the NHS does less than 1/10 of the appointments on a Saturday that it will do on a Tuesday, for example. So there's a huge potential scope there, theoretically.
This has been going on for a long time as well.
To be getting people through the system. But then on the other hand, in the Eye today, we hear that even though Jeremy Hunt just gave the NHS a massive pile of money, it might still need to make cuts to key services next year if inflation keeps going up, if wage demands keep going up. And finally, and I've got personal experience of this last one, apparently loads of pharmacies are struggling to find the staff to open. And that in turn puts even more pressure on the NHS. I just needed to book an appointment to get just my blood pressure taken for some medicine. In the old days, that would have been a pharmacy thing.
Do it yourself now.
You can do it yourself. But it used to be, when I was, the doctor was like, just book into a pharmacy and get it done. I called 3 pharmacies and they were like, this is ridiculous. We don't do this anymore. You have to book to your GP. And so that's more pressure. So I think it's a fascinating...
So do you think the 7-day-a-week is a solution? Because I was reading, if you think about it, how expensive the equipment is that you've got, surgery sort of left vacant over a weekend, it does seem that you could get rid of the backlog if you could use 2 extra days a week.
Well, 3, because Friday is also...
Oh, is that also...
Apparently much lower. Basically, we've got a 4-day-a-week NHS at the moment, which not a lot of people really realise. But the problem is, of course, that you need to pay the staff. You need to have the staff to man the NHS on those days. So, yes, in theory, but I think it just shows that even after we're facing the highest tax burden in God knows how many decades, we are looking at not having enough money for the NHS as is and having to spend even more.
The NHS has never been funded more than it has at the moment.
Absolutely.
You know, and for me, it's not underfunding of the NHS, it's mismanagement of the NHS and a really clunky, Luddite IT system that's running, booking appointments and doing everything else. And if you spent less money on diversity and inclusion training and more money actually and cleaning, bring back matrons, let hospitals smell like hospitals.
Isn't it extraordinary, though, that we're talking about having a 7-day-a-week NHS? I mean, shouldn't that be as a matter... I mean, this is the problem with the NHS, it seems to me, is that it's run for the convenience of the people who work in it rather than for the patients. I agree. And it's like saying, well, you don't get ill on a Saturday or Sunday because, you know, we haven't got the staff there for that. I mean, the NHS should be a 7-day-a-week service. Surely that's obvious, isn't it?
Well, I still like to give people days... I mean, I think it's...
nobody does 7 days.
You rotate your days off.
And I think now it's dangerous. So when would you stop? Would you stop for bank holidays? Would you stop for Christmas Day? Would you stop for Easter Sunday? That's the thing.
No, what I would...
There should always always be people. There should always be people working. I mean, if you're a police officer, some police officers will be working on Christmas Day, and surely why should the NHS be any different?
But I think the difference is, of course, people are only going to be doing their 5-day-a-week or whatever they're elected or paid for. They just rotate it. So I'm not saying that a single person should be doing 7 days. I'm saying work it out and do the rota shifts. Now, I've got something different here. And I think this is a good point, we need to hire more male teachers, and that's because you'll find nearly a third of schools do not have a male teacher.
Is this primary schools?
No, this is all schools. It's worse in primary schools. Primary schools, no. So in secondary schools, so out of the 3,240 schools, there is not a male teacher there. And people are saying, you know, we haven't got a role model, a male role model for all those people. The research is by the Institute for Social and Economic Research, and the MP bringing it forward is one called Ben Bradley. And he's saying, look, we've been quick to use equality laws to encourage more women, and rightly so, into science, technology, engineering, maths, but we've not used it to get more male role models into schools. And he's saying this could help really for young sort of middle, you know, working class white boys who are falling behind in the education system.
Rates now, 1 in 400 couples will only get married. We've got one of the highest divorce rates. Where are the male figures here, you know, to help these young lads? Girls will be fine because girls are emotionally wired differently from lads. But because I've got 3 girls of my own and I've got a son, so I know what I'm talking about. And I think if there was more masculinity within schools, I think it would help everybody. Well, and I don't blame the lads for not wanting to become teachers, because they're hit with so many accusations at times as well that would make their position.
And on top of that, when you do become a male teacher, they don't last as long as a male teacher, Henry.
Absolutely, no, absolutely not. But also, it's not just about role models. It's also about the direct assessment on male school performance. Because, you know, one of the things we saw during the pandemic when people were graded on teacher assessment is that girls overtook boys in maths for the first time, and then all of a sudden, when boys were taking the exams again, boys retook that lead. Now, that's one of the few subjects, I think, where they still do. But the fact is that boys learn differently, and male teachers understand that way of learning better. And
is it the way of learning, or is it they need stricter discipline?
Well, it's both. It's a combination of both. They need stricter discipline in the classroom. They need more understanding of the fact that some other things as well. But also, frankly, boys are much worse at the theatre of learning. You know, they are very good at cramming for an exam, generally. Obviously, there's always a range. But they're much worse at being present throughout the year, having the neat notes and everything else. And so...
They probably have a lower attention span as well, do they?
Yeah,
except for, you know, if you're to ask a classroom of kids a question, who puts the hands up first? It's always the boys. No, it's the boys. Girls usually sit back. They might know the answer, but they usually sit back and don't put the hands up. So boys are really enthusiastic, but I think it is the discipline and the role model there.
If you're thinking about the education gap that is opening up between boys and girls in our schools now, and then you think about the fact that we have an overwhelmingly female teaching force, that's not surprising. You know, you absolutely need a balance, because otherwise you're just not going to be providing boys with the tailored education that they need and that girls are getting.
Henry Hill, thank you very much indeed, Deputy Editor there of Con Home. You can't stay with us, but Claire, you will be staying with us, and you will be back at 11 o'clock to look at the papers. But coming up after the break, 2 of our guests go head-to-head on whether it's now time for asylum seekers to be legally allowed to work in the UK. Don't forget, we want to hear from you too, so get emailing us with your views about what you've just heard here. But don't go anywhere, stay with us.
Good morning, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. We do have some rain through the course of the day, particularly across the east and later on across the west. This will be followed by showers into Sunday. Temperatures around average. We are between weather systems at the moment, but it doesn't take long before further Atlantic systems move in, pushing their way eastwards, bringing strong winds and some heavy rain at times, and that continues into next week. So this morning, a cold, frosty start across some western areas, but some sunshine here too. Across the east, cloudy skies, some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, so quite a cold feel to the morning. As we go through the day and into the afternoon, it stays cloudy and grey across the east of the UK. This brighter, sunnier spot across parts of Scotland into Wales and the West Country before rain arrives across Northern Ireland. Under the cloud, temperatures 8 or 9 Celsius, in the sunshine 11 or 12. So if you get in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad, but quite chilly elsewhere, lower than on Friday. Through the evening time, this band of rain will continue to push its way eastward. We could see some heavy bursts at times, some strong winds too. And then this will interact with the colder air across the mountains of Scotland, giving some snow. And then overnight showers follow. Under the clearer slots, temperatures down to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But for many, 6 to 8 degrees, so not quite as cold as the night just gone. A wet start across eastern areas, the rain pushes out into the North Sea, blustery showers follow. Best of the sunshine across central and southern areas, showers most frequent across the north and the west, some hail, some thunder in there, still falling as sleet and snow over the higher ground of Scotland in particular. And it will feel quite chilly, temperatures highs around 11 or 12 in the southwest, but elsewhere struggling to get into double figures. And looking into the beginning of next week, it stays fairly unsettled. Longer spells of rain on Monday, followed by showers Tuesday and Wednesday. And temperatures generally stay around average for the time of year. I'll see you again soon.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Now, should the ban on asylum seekers working be lifted? That's the question the government is being asked to consider, as out-of-control illegal channel crossings have packed hotels and bed and breakfasts around the country with largely working-aged men.
While some have raised the potential economic benefits of such a scheme, others are concerned that further liberalisation of asylum law could encourage more people to take the long journey to Britain.
Join us now to debate the issue is the economics professor for King's College London, Jonathan Porters, and Director of Migration Watch UK, Alp Maymat. Jonathan, can I start with you? You know, why should asylum seekers be allowed to work? Wouldn't it just, as Esther's just said, would it not just encourage more of these channel crossings that we've seen?
If you think that the primary motivation for people coming from, for example, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on, is to work in the UK, I think that there's not a lot of evidence of that, frankly. There is a more recent issue with people coming from Albania who, up until this summer, largely didn't come here via this route. They came here and worked illegally by other routes, not by the asylum route. So it is a complicated issue, but we do have, because of, and let's be clear what's going on here, people who have a legitimate claim for asylum, they have the right to have their claim examined, who, while they are waiting to have that claim examined, they cannot work. Now, what the government has done, because of incompetence, mismanagement and austerity, is that it's leaving these people in limbo. It's not processing claims. And remember, that predated the rise in channel crossings. That's been going on for some years. These large numbers of people who are stuck in the system. Now, what you need to do, ideally, you would process people quickly, either give them refugee status and then allow them to work, which is legal, or reject their asylum claims and then, if appropriate, remove them from the country. In which case, the question of them not working, the question of them working or not working simply doesn't arise. What we have is a problem which has been created by government.
And ask Alp a question now. You know, it's a fair point. You know, these people could be working. We're now seeing more people here. People are seeing asylum seekers in hotels, and they're thinking, could they pay their way in one way or another? Alp, so isn't this a possible solution for the asylum seekers and for the country?
A solution, I would beg to differ. It would make it so much worse. It would put booster rockets behind illegal immigration, and not just across the Channel, but across the board. Those who come here here for years, and then when being picked up or discovered to be here illegally, claim asylum. It just encourages all that, and no government serious about tackling illegal immigration, tackling the boats coming across the Channel, would ever consider it. Fortunately, we have a sensible Home Secretary at the moment who I'm pretty sure would never contemplate it. And look, this has never been done. This is not something that this government has actually taken upon itself not to do. Governments since the beginning of the time when the 1951 Convention came into force have always said no.
Is this not a different time? Alp, is this not a different time? Are people not, now that we've got, you know, a cost of living squeeze, prices are going up, taxes are going up, do we not think that rather than just housing people in largely hotels, they too could be working? There's lots of job vacancies, 1.3 million job vacancies, and they could pay some tax for the support we're giving.
Esther, all you're saying there is that anyone who wants to make it across the Channel in a boat will be okay because they will be allowed to work. That is not sensible, for goodness sake. It's a bad idea. We have 5.3 million people who are registered on unemployment benefits. There are 1.2 million who are actually unemployed. Out of work benefits, sorry. And there are millions of people who are not economically active. Wouldn't it be better, actually, to see about getting them into the workforce?
So, Jonathan, I mean, there's Alp's view would be shared by.
Hang on a sec, Jonathan. Phil.
Yeah, I was just saying that Alp's made the point, which I think lots of people would agree with, that this would just encourage more people to come here if they felt they could work from day one. It isn't. I mean, the government have a system. If you've been waiting over 12 months for your case to be considered, you are allowed to work, and most other places have a similar regime in place. I think it's 9 months in the EU, 6 months in the US. So, I mean, isn't that the fair balance from what you're saying about people waiting in limbo for too long?
I think, so what happened, I mean, Alp is wrong that this has always been the case. In the early 2000s, when there was a similar sense of crisis, David Blunkett introduced a new rule that said that or removed the rule that said that they could work after 6 months. But at the same time, the government invested more in speeding up processing. So what Blunkett said was, well, look, we don't want to have anybody waiting more. We're going to process pretty much everyone in 6 months, and then they'll either be deemed to be a refugee, in which case they'll be allowed to work, or they won't, in which case they won't. That worked reasonably well when we were processing people in 6 months. Alp is, of course, completely wrong when he says anybody who came here and claimed asylum would just be allowed to work. The point is that they would be allowed to work for a period of time while their application was being assessed. If they were rejected, of course they wouldn't. If they were accepted, they would. The
So
root
is
of
the
the problem
really, Jonathan, about the speed of the process? I mean, you've got the speed of the process and you've got more and more people coming in, so that process is going to be slower. Could you envisage them working for not just 6 months, but could it be 2 years? Could it extend on forever?
We really should not be, there should not be people in the system who are waiting for more than 2 years, any more, frankly, than there should be people who are on a hospital waiting list for more than 18 months. Now, we have a government that, and remember, this rise in application time, just like the rise in NHS waiting times, preceded the recent growth in asylum seekers. It's a consequence of mismanagement and cuts. It is not a consequence of the very recent...
Jonathan,
let's bring in
Jonathan. Can I agree with Jonathan? We do actually often agree on many things, although we do disagree as well, of course. But the fact is, it should be speeded up. The whole process should be speeded up. The other thing that used to happen in Mr. Blunkett's time, by the way, was that there were far more people removed who had failed. That has plummeted now. All it would do, and when we weren't getting 42,000 by the 19th of November in the year crossing the channel, that this is a totally different order of what is going on at the moment, and it's a very bad idea to allow people to work in the way that is being sought.
Alp Malmet and Jonathan Portes, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know we will come back to this conversation, to this debate, but I guess our viewers have a view. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I've got mixed opinions. I mean, I think because I take Alp's point, but of course people are coming over and working. They're just working illegally. So it's not that they're not working. They're working and they're going into and then disappearing, and it's harder to track them down and stuff like that. So this would help them at least. We'd know where they were and they'd be in the system. And like you say, they could potentially be paying tax. But on balance, I think I'm probably with Alp that it would just be a magnet for more and more people to come here, and it'd make a bad situation worse, probably. But I think it's an interesting debate.
Yeah, and please get in touch. GBviews at gbnews.uk. You know exactly how to get in touch with us. Let us know what you think. Now, EastEnders actor Jake Wood turned 50 this year and is urging those who qualified to get vaccinated, and we're delighted to say that he joins us now. Now, he's going to join us in a second, but that's interesting that he feels that, you know, everybody or more people should get the flu vaccine. I think something like 55% do, 45% don't. I personally, and it is a matter of choice, won't be. My dad is. I'm not. I'm not sure what you're doing.
I sometimes, it's just a question of getting time to do it, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, Jake's there now. So, Jake, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Why do you feel so strongly about people going and getting the flu vaccine?
Well, I think, I've reached a milestone this year, Phil. I was 50 in July, believe it or not. I know I don't look it. Thank you very much. But, yeah, I think it's just to raise awareness that if you're 50 and above now, you're eligible for a free flu vaccine. Now, they've only been doing this for, I think this is a second year that they've been doing it. Normally, everyone knows that you're eligible at the age of 65, but they've raised lowered the age that you can have it down to 50. And I think it's just awareness. I think it's just over half of the 50 to 64-year-old age group, as you mentioned there, Esther, are planning to get the flu vaccine. And I think it's just probably awareness that they don't know that they're due a free one if you're 50 and above. So good news for me. I've got mine booked in next week. You can book it through the NHS app or just your local pharmacy, as I did. So yeah, listen, I would encourage everyone to get it. You know, I think flu is still around. It's still a serious issue for many people.
You're super fit, aren't you? I've been impressed with all the things you've done, whether it's marathons, fantastic as well. That would have been for your dear friend who's no longer with us, Barbara Windsor. So you do that, you're into your boxing, you're into your football, and even a little bit of dancing as well. Did you enjoy your time on Strictly?
Yeah, well, that was a few years ago now, Esther.
Yes.
What was that, 2014? But yeah, no, I enjoyed it immensely. Incredible show. But even when I was working on EastEnders, I was there 15 years. We used to have a doctor come around every year to give all the actors that wanted them flu vaccines, and I always did every year. And I think it's important. It protects you, it protects those around you. And I think it's a good thing. So if you're 50 and above, you can get your free flu vaccine. I'd encourage everyone to go ahead and get it.
From that, you also, which I also thought was interesting, in Anti-Bullying Week, you talked about sort of the bullying issues and how to guard against that. And it can be from a whole range. You said you were bullied because you had sort of red hair. So, how did you cope with it, and why do you think it's important to speak out about it?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. I sort of wasn't bullied severely. It was just obviously name calling, teasing, and as I've spoken about quite a lot, I think anything that marks you out as different when you're growing up is going to be, potentially an area that other kids can sort of pick on. I think obviously in this age of social media as well, it's very important to educate ourselves about that. There are so many more different ways that kids can be bullied now, and I thought the Diana Award and what they were setting up there was an incredible thing. They were training, I think it's 10,000 anti-bullying mentors, if you like, kids in schools that can, help support other kids that are having issues in that area. I just thought that was an incredibly insightful idea, really, to get their peers involved and give them sort of, a visible place they can go to talk to. And I thought if I was a kid at school and I had an anti-bullying ambassador at school, then that was something that I might have made use of and found very useful. So yeah, listen, very happy to get behind that campaign.
Jake, we appreciate you speaking out about these issues. It's good of you to come on. Is there, just finally, very quickly, 15 years in EastEnders, any chance of a return for Max Brannigan back into EastEnders?
We're hoping so.
Well, thank you, guys. I do get asked that question every interview I do.
That's because we want you back there.
Thank you so much. I was there for 15 years. It was incredible. I'm still a massive fan of the show. Chris Clenshaw, the current boss, is doing an amazing job. So listen, never say never, Phil. You never know. You never know.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I say that about plastic surgery. Never say never. You might need it one day.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks ever so much. All the best. Now, coming up after the break, we'll be looking ahead to the Qatar World Cup, which starts tomorrow, and the controversy over the banning of alcohol at the stadiums.
Which I don't seem to get the big issue about.
Well, I'm not sure it's a big issue either, but lots of people think it is, so we'll discuss it. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to the show. Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views.
I've got Janice here said the idea to allow asylum seekers to work is ludicrous. The biggest problem we have is with our infrastructure. The NHS can't cope, housing couldn't cope, schools couldn't cope. We simply should not be encouraging any more people to enter our small country. Where the hell are we going to put them, says Janice.
Yeah, Gary says, well, with the present Tory government, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the migrants to work in the Home Office to speed up the claims processing, then they could process themselves.
I shouldn't be laughing at that, Gary. Sorry, we have the same sort of dark sense of humour there. And then Penny thinks if these migrants are allowed to work, we'll have the same effect as when we had an influx of other people coming from Eastern Europe. Reduction in wages in the lower paid workers for the people already living here.
I just want to mention what Alison said, because we were discussing about the 7-day NHS, and Alison said, please can you inform your presenters, which you've very well done here, Alison, that nurses do and always have covered a 7-day week. It's the managers and the most senior doctors that do not. I'm sure.
So in that
case,
then nurses will agree then we need to be looked after 7 days a week. They are doing it, but some aren't. So that goes some way to getting us a 7-day week service.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Alison.
So the Qatari World Cup commences tomorrow with the host nation welcoming Ecuador to the El Bayat Stadium at 4 p.m. UK time.
It goes without saying the decision to host the competition in the Middle Eastern nation has been a controversial one. And yesterday news emerged that alcohol sales will be banned in stadiums, leading to widespread criticism.
Let's now talk to sports broadcaster and journalist Chris Scudder, who is heading over to Qatar soon. So is this really going to impact the World Cup? Are you really, as a supporter, miffed about not being able to get beer in stadiums?
It's just the surprise, Esther. It's the timing of this. 2 days before the start of the World Cup. We've all known the drink laws in Qatar, but we've got a standoff. I think we have to put this into context, really, because Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, has gone on the warpath, if you like, this morning. A bit of a diatribe when he spoke to the assembled gathering in Qatar. And you were just talking, Philip, there about migrant workers, the migrants. So today, said Gianni Infantino, I feel a migrant worker. He's been very much on the defensive here. What we've got is a standoff between FIFA and the media, and the Qataris are kind of caught in the middle. The drink thing from last night, if you like, is a bit of small beer compared to what's happening right now, because Infantino has really gone on the warpath about this and said that the West are hypocrites. There's the Budweiser. In fact, they said last night, didn't they? They're a little bit embarrassed about this. Well, there was a tweet from the Brewers. This is a bit awkward, which it is 2 days before the start of the World Cup. So we've got this tension between the media.
Can I just ask you one thing there? When you're talking about hypocrisy or whatever with Budweiser, shouldn't Budweiser look at themselves going to a country that doesn't agree with alcohol? It obviously knew it was advertising itself. It was quite happy to do so in a culture that didn't agree with alcohol. So it's not blame free, is it? As a company, as a big business.
No, but they have a multi-million-pound contract with FIFA, who supply beer. This is part of the problem, and this is why the controversy has been around for so long. That was it appropriate to take a World Cup to a country where drink is not widely consumed? It's available in hotels. My understanding is there will be drinks available in the fan parks, but until 3 days ago, you would be able to buy a drink at a very expensive price. That's another issue, almost £12 for less than a pint of beer outside the stadiums. Now, for whatever reason, I have a theory on this. The Qataris, the royal family there, have said, no, we are not going to allow drinking in public around the stadiums. Now, I wonder, because of the late call on this, whether it's because of this standoff where the media have assembled. This was always going to happen. As soon as the media arrived in Qatar, all the issues, the LGBT issue, the migrant workers, all those things were going to be raised. And I think they have been a little bit taken aback by the fact that it suddenly landed on them, having we all known this is going to be happening for 12 years. And all that is on FIFA. FIFA's allegedly very corrupt decision back in 2010 to hold the World Cup in this country. So We've all known that drink's going to be an issue, but...
Chris, can I just... I mean, you've obviously written... You're a regular at the World Cup. You've written a book on the previous, I think, 7 or so World Cups. When the competition gets going, I mean, will everyone just forget all of this stuff and just concentrate on the football, which is what FIFA have been saying to people, they should just concentrate on the football?
You pretty much hit the nail on the head, but that's just how the media works. This was always going to happen. For the first week of the media arriving, and they're still arriving now, and Infantino has today addressed the media for the first time and gone on the offensive, and it's backfiring. If you go on social media, you'll see he's coming in for a lot of stick because there's a lot of hypocrisy. Today he said, I'm a migrant worker. Well, I don't think they're on the kind of wages that he is. Maybe not the best reference there. But yes, you're right. Within a few days, the football's going to start. It starts tomorrow. Ecuador versus Qatar. England playing on Monday. Wales playing on Monday. And the very nature of the narrative is that it will shift. But I think the stink around this World Cup is going to linger for the duration. The players, there they are. They're caught in the middle of this. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Some are going to wear the rainbow armbands. The USA, Australia, England have all spoken out saying that they will stand up for what they believe in. FIFA saying, let's get politics out of football.
Chris Scudder,
it's all very awkward, isn't it?
Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Enjoy the World Cup, and I suspect the players will be criticised or not for whether they win the tournament rather than what their views are on political issues. But we will see, and I hope as well, if anyone if fancies, we're coming up to Christmas, fancies a book, I know Chris has written a cracking book on previous World Cups, and he'll be no doubt adding a final chapter
He certainly will.
To that book, a new updated version after Qatar. So all the best with that, Chris, too.
Staying with the World Cup, and a new report published by Policy Exchange on the eve of the tournament raises serious questions about what sort of relationship the UK should have with Qatar and whether Brits should be supporting the tournament.
It's been written by Sir John Jenkins, who served as UK ambassador to Syria, Iraq, Libya and Saudi Arabia, and we're delighted to say that he joins us now. So, John, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, we've been discussing about, you know, the Qatar, and like any country, it acts in its own national interest. It has its own cultures that we presumably should be respecting. What's the difficulty with having a relationship with a country which, as far as I can see, most of the people in the royal family were British educated? They're sort of friendly towards the UK. Should we not be embracing them rather than trying to turn them away from us?
Well, we should clearly respect other cultures. I spent a 35-year career in the Foreign Office doing exactly that. And it's interesting, your previous interview, when you talked about the impact of the various controversies about this World Cup on the World Cup itself. I think Chris Scudder was absolutely right. I think when the football starts, people will concentrate on that. But I think once it's finished, I think the questions that arise from the World Cup, the way it was obtained, and the nature of Qatar itself, and the way the Qatar itself pursues its policies, not just inside Qatar or inside the Gulf, but more widely in the Middle East and indeed in Europe and the United States, will become live again. And I think they should. I think the issue of corruption in football and the various allegations and the various bans and prosecutions and so forth that arose out of the bidding process in 2010 is an issue for FIFA. And I think FIFA has a lot of serious questions to answer, which Gianni Infantino in his rant this morning simply didn't address. But the issue of Qatar, why we should have a relationship with Qatar, which I think is what you
yes.
You know, this was crystallized for me first of all in 2011 when I was in Libya, and we were supposed to be all on the same side. We were supposed to be helping to protect the Libyan people. In the end, when Gaddafi went to build a new system in Libya, which was a democratic system, and so forth. I mean, that could have been incredibly naive. We were working with the French, with the Americans, with the Emiratis, and supposedly with the Qataris. But actually, what the Qataris were doing was entirely at odds with what we and our partners, including the Emirates, wanted to do in Libya. They were funding Islamist militias. They were funding Islamist militias in Benghazi and in Tripoli, and they were doing it with the help of a bunch of Libyan Islamists who had been resident in Qatar for many, many years. And they did it without consultation at all. And it's actually, for me, it's one of the reasons why Libya went to the bad after 2011. There were lots of other reasons for it as well, but that was one of the reasons. And every time we asked them what they were doing, they said, we support democracy. We support the right of the people to choose. Well, fine, OK, but in that case, why don't people choose Qatar?
I mean, you obviously know this much better, and I was trying to catch up and read a lot about it, but it seems Qatar has got a very tricky path to walk. I mean, I was even looking at it's only 300,000 citizens, a relatively new country, still got tribes, still got a family at the top, 2 other million guest workers as they have come in, and they've got to really walk a steady path between becoming westernised, becoming modernised, and who are their neighbours, what is their religion and what is their culture. So in a quick answer, is this, so there's a lot of criticism at FIFA, could this help them on that journey? So we can't be too critical. We've got to be friends here, bringing them on a journey because they are in a very, very difficult position themselves. Just a quick answer, if you can.
We're friends with Libya. We're friends with Libya because with Qatar because of natural gas, basically. And I don't think. Do I think the World Cup is going to help with whatever it is we're talking about, liberalisation and so forth? No. I mean, I think I think they do have a very tricky path to tread. They're extremely vulnerable. So are the Emirates. So is Bahrain, and they choose different ways. And I think just a quick one. I mean, one of the issues we raised in our report is the issue of Qatari funding to Islamist groups and institutions in this country and in Europe, in Germany, France, and in the United States, for that matter. A lot of this is unaccountable. A lot of it is untransparent. And that makes me very nervous, given the history of Qatar's involvement in the wider Middle East. Sir
John Jenkins, thank you very much indeed for bringing your expertise to the show this morning. Thank you. And I think that's part of the issue, isn't it? It is in a very difficult part of the world.
Now, an independent economics think tank has warned that Middle England is in for quite a shock after Jeremy Hunt's tough autumn budget. Here to discuss it further is economist and friend of the show, Justin Urquhart-Stewart. Welcome, Justin. Now, I mean, look...
Can I just say, instead of selling Budweiser, what they could do is sell Muller Light.
Very good.
Very good, I like that. Muller Zero.
Now, I mean, the statement that Jeremy Hunt gave on Thursday was a statement that probably a Labour Chancellor wouldn't have dared to give, let alone would have wanted to give. So, you know, has Jeremy Hunt lost the plot, or is there some method in his apparent madness?
Well, I hope there's a method in his madness, but no. What was the main aim of this? The main aim, in my view, was actually sort of calm down, recover from the last debate, and say, right, now it's the international markets. We're now steady. You know, proper people are now controlling what's going on, and this is what we expect to happen. And also, then politically, by the way, all the cuts are going to be after 2 years' time, so it's not going to be us who are going to be dealing with it anyway, or not this particular government. So come up with something which is seen as being dull, but actually seems to be steady. What I'd like to then think is, in about 3 or 4 months' time, you then come up with something and say, right, this year's going to look a little bit better. We've got inflation starting to come down, and here are some nice hotspots occurring in the UK economy, beginning to get going, the high-tech areas and things like that, and now come up with a growth package. So get this bit done first, so that actually now it's firm hand on the wheel, and then next stage actually say, right, now give us some growth.
So I'm going to ask, is that a big gamble then? Have they really got any control over those timings? Because if it is a gamble, it goes wrong. That's a lot of people feeling a lot of pain for a long time to come, and you'll be booted out at the next general election because people will still be feeling the pain.
Well, the problem was that the last mini-budget, they tried to pack it all in together. OK, it didn't go through the OBR and all those sort of things. But they're saying, right, we're going to have these tax cuts, we're going to go for growth. And so it put too much in there, and the market then doesn't believe you. And, of course, they didn't actually believe it because it wasn't funded properly. So this is all about confidence to that stage. But some of this, I have to say, was really rather frustrating. The R&D on high-tech areas that being cut in terms of allowances is really stupid, because the high-tech areas, the really growth areas, they have those extra amounts actually probably blended in.
Well, I was going to say they might have got confidence in the markets, but I wonder if the public has lost the confidence.
Absolutely. Well, we're also joined in the studio by the patriotic millionaire Dr. Phil White. Now, you must be doing cartwheels over this budget. You've always wanted to pay more tax, and Jeremy Hunt's come along and he's delivered for you, hasn't he?
Actually, no.
Oh, right.
No. I mean, I started off really quite optimistic about this budget, and with all the trailers saying those with the broadest shoulders should pay more, we're going to spread the pain around and so on. And then I was getting disappointed as I heard the announcements. And actually, at the end, I was quite angry about it, to be honest, because it feels like, yes, there's a lot of pain for middle-income people, and we've heard hits of 3.7%, I think, the Resolution Foundation forecast on that. And there's some shifting of the tax threshold from 150k to 125k. But actually, there is no tax on wealth in there in a meaningful way.
And this, I absolutely agree with you there. They're talking about sort of, the wealthy pay more, but they've sucked in a lot of middle earners to the, tune of, over the next 6 years, they'll be paying £20,000 more. And you, as you say, as one of the patriotic millionaires, are saying it was the wealthier, not this big squeeze on people at the moment who can ill afford to live, and it's going to be very painful. So what would you suggest they could have done, or you'd be prepared to do?
Wealth taxes, absolutely. I mean, and if we look, for example, through the pandemic, billionaires increased their wealth by, I think the number is 21.8% in 1 year of the pandemic. And where did that money come from? Actually, that came from the government's, right actions on furlough and so on, and that rippled up to billionaires who actually did very well out of the pandemic. I think it's time to take some of that money back, frankly.
But is the problem not that, whereas people, middle-income people, they're trapped, really, in the UK, they're not going to go anywhere, they're an easy target. Wealthy people are not all like you who want to pay more tax. Some of them don't want to pay more tax, and it's very easy for them just to jump and go and live somewhere else, and the government gets nothing out of them rather than more out of them. Isn't that the problem that Jeremy Hunt's got with that approach?
I really don't think so, to be honest. Again, take that figure of 21.8% over 1 year improvement in wealth. So we're advocating wealth taxes of around 1%, 2% per year. So if you told a billionaire, actually, you're not going to make 21.8%, you're only going to make 20.8% this year, I'm not sure they're going to be leaving the country.
Justin, what do you think of that? That instead of squeezing the middle, it should have gone more to, wealthy people.
Well, absolutely. We are creating, for those people have really benefited over the past few years. We've seen asset prices going up. They're the ones who've actually benefited from it. What you can do is how do you make it more acceptable? The answer is, right, OK, if you're very wealthy, you're going to be paying more tax. And what's the quid pro quo for that? We'll give you so much off your inheritance tax. Now, for those people so wealthy, it may not actually apply so much to them, but they seem to be giving something back. And it's not something that costs the government anything now.
And the other thing that really I thought was a misfire, and that was the extra tax on businesses.
Oh, it's ridiculous. This is a time when you really want to be able to encouraging businesses. Do you need the money from there? The answer is that's the wrong point.
No, again, I mean, I think Jeremy Hunt has said at one point, actually, you can't magic up £25 billion from wealthy people or something. Actually, you can. I mean, there is a lot of money in that wealth.
You know what? Jeremy Hunt will be on the phone to you quick as a flash, asking you to get your checkbook out. And we'll say we've got it all on video, so you're going to have to do that.
Anyway, Phil, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Justin, thank you for joining us too. That's it for the first hour here, but don't go anywhere. We will be back after this short break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Good morning and welcome back to Saturday Morning with Esther and Philip. Coming up this hour.
Well, we've got that question, hasn't it? We're talking about cryptocurrency. Is this the biggest ever get-rich-quick scam, or is it the new currency?
We'll be having a good debate about that. We've got David Davis, the former Cabinet Minister, on, talking about his proposed solution to all of those dinghies coming over from France. So you really won't want to miss that.
And is this lady barking mad? She's the mother to 8 dogs and she treats them like babies. We'll be meeting her and finding out why she loves her dogs so much. And we want to hear from you too this morning. So if you want to get involved, you know how you do it. You just email us on gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us on GB News. But now it's time for your headlines with Ray.
Good morning. Coming up to 1 minute past 11, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. The Foreign Secretary is warning that the threat from Iran's nuclear programme is more advanced than ever before. Speaking at a security conference in Bahrain, James Cleverly stressed Britain's determination to stop the strict Islamic country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. He also criticised Iran's rulers for supplying Russia with drones, which have been used to launch attacks against civilians in Ukraine.
As their people demonstrate against decades of oppression, Iran's rulers are spreading bloodshed and destruction across the region and as far away as Kyiv. Britain is determined to work alongside our friends to counter the Iranian threat, interdict the smuggling of conventional arms, and prevent the regime from acquiring nuclear weapons capability.
FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for.
I'm European. Actually, I am European. Not just I feel European. I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons.
Well, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell told us the tournament should never have been given to Qatar, and anyone connected with it risks damaging their reputation.
Well, I think it's really shameful that celebrities are allowing themselves to be bought by the Qatar billions in order to put a positive spin on what is a sexist, homophobic and racist dictatorship. I mean, how can David Beckham, Robbie Williams and all these other big stars who are performing in Qatar, how can they have a clean conscience when they know what this regime is doing to people? I think it's going to cause them huge damage.
Well, back here and following months of bullying and harassment claims, the latest of which involves Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab, there are calls to change the culture in Westminster. Chair of the Women and Equalities Committee, Caroline Noakes, says gay men are most at risk. She spoke exclusively to Gloria De Piero.
young gay men, I sometimes think that they are the most vulnerable, that we give them a mechanism where they know that they're going to be protected.
Why do you say that young gay men may be the most vulnerable?
Because people don't talk about it. And I think that there is still a taboo around homosexuality. And there have been some cases where I can think of individuals who've harassed both male and female members of staff. And the female member of staff has had all of the sympathy, all of the column inches in the press, and there'll be this, and also when it comes to the young gay man.
Well, you can watch the full interview on GB News' latest show, Gloria Meets, where you'll find out who the person behind the politician is. That's every Sunday at 6 p.m. The search for a woman who was swept into a river has resumed in Aberdeenshire. It's believed she was trying to rescue a dog in the River Don at Moneymusk when she got into difficulty. Heavy rain in the east of Scotland triggered several severe flood warnings, with the wet weather continuing to cause travel disruptions today. Delegates have failed to reach a deal at COP27, forcing an extension of the climate summit in Egypt. Talks this weekend will focus on how poorer countries affected by global warming should be compensated. 134 developing nations want a special fund to be set up to help them cope with loss and damage due to droughts, floods and wildfires. The European Union says it will back the demand, but countries, including the US and China, are yet to respond. Elon Musk has launched a Twitter poll asking users if he should bring back Donald Trump. The former president's account was suspended after last year's attack on the US Capitol. Twitter's new owner says he might reverse that ban. The poll, which you can see on your screens now, is open for 24 hours, and it's currently very close, with around 52.5% voting yes for his return. It's also receiving around 1 million votes an hour. You're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Esther and Phil.
Thanks, Ray. Lots of you have been getting in touch this morning.
I've got Jean Ponders. I'm almost 72. I have never had a flu vaccine. I was a nurse. My father was a GP in the day when they worked. He never had a flu vaccine and said all it does is weaken your immunity. So she's not necessarily somebody who'd go for it.
And Richie has a similar point of view. He says, I won't be having the flu vaccine and I'm 69 years old. From the day I was born to the age of 30, I never had flu. I then had a flu jab organised by work, and by the very next day I had flu. I've never had a flu jab since from that day to this, and I've never, in the past 39 years, had a flu jab, and I've never had flu, so they know where they can stick their flu jab, says Richie. There you go.
And we were also talking about whether asylum seekers should be working. Margaret says it's all about cheap labour. That's what it's all about. The people who are allowing this is getting cheap labour through the back door after we left the EU. So Margaret's not for it.
And Carol asks, what if these people have no documentation? How can you be sure they don't have a criminal record? I wouldn't employ them. It's a fair point, Carol.
Now, I like this one because we're talking about the World Cup in Qatar, and I think Pete is on my wavelength. He says, this just proves how much our society now relies on alcohol on all TV programmes. When things appear tough, everyone reaches for a bottle of something. But why? Now, because alcohol is banned at the World Cup, everyone is up in arms because they can't have a drink. No wonder alcohol is a problem for a lot of people. You can enjoy your life by not having a drink. I do have a drink, but I just thought at the World Cup, there are other places, isn't it? You can go for a drink. You can't have it in the stadium, but you can have it everywhere else.
I don't have a drink. I don't.
No, he doesn't drink. He's driven me to drink.
My dad says I'm a disgrace of the family. But Phil here says it'd be better if they just served the beer and banned the football. And there may be other people who think that too. Now we're delighted to again be joined in the studio by broadcaster Claire Muldoon to go through the papers. Claire, what's caught your eye?
Right, there's quite a few stuff, notwithstanding what Ray's just spoken about. COP27 draws to a close with very little progress made. I mean, that's not the shock of the century. No one knew that was happening. I think COP is just the new Davos, and I think everything should be scrapped, and until we've got China and Russia on board, you know, committing them to reducing their carbon footprint, then there's really no point, because Britain, we're that size in comparison to all the big industrial nations.
And it sort of ended on just people wanting reparations as they saw it. So at the end, it was
just all about handing out, all about money. Of course, it's all about that. But the main story I want to read, and I don't know about you two, and indeed our viewers, but I don't think anyone actually buys newspapers these days to get the news, because we've got rolling news stations all the time. What we do buy newspapers for is opinion, I think. And Janice Turner in today's Times has got a great op-ed on Nicola Sturgeon and her gender law, she says, is another blow to women. And I agree wholeheartedly. Now, this is pinned to a story of a select committee that was happening in Scotland in Holyrood, where a scientist was asked to remove her scarf. Now, her scarf was coloured with the colours white, purple and green, which are the suffragette colours. It's, you know, it's the move of, was it Mary Smith in 1832 when she took the petition to the House of Commons for women's vote? I mean, come on, Esther, if there's anyone that would be on board with this, it's you, clearly. Well, but then it took 100 years for it to actually work and be put in place. Anyway, apparently it was a security guard that came up and asked this lady to leave, the scientist to leave. And she said, well, why? Because your scarf, you know, is promoting feminism. And of course it wasn't. So now the SNP have had to backtrack. And this is all on the basis of Nicola Sturgeon and her absolute cabal at Butte House at the moment that is giving nothing, no shred of anything to give, because what they want to do...
turned sort of autocratic here. Nicola's like a top dictator there, and I don't understand why the feisty people of Scotland don't say, enough is enough, we'll do what we want to do.
Thank you, and a lot of them do, Esther. I have been pilloried, I've been blocked on Twitter by both Nicola Sturgeon and her sidekick, Janie Godley, apparently a comedian. And it's all this rhetoric, and this is vile, and it's villainous. All my family still live in Scotland. I've got friends that still live there. I don't know any one of them that vote for the SNP. But this is really bad, because this committee stage on Tuesday was unrevised by 150 tabled amendments. Then the whole bill, she wants, Nicola Sturgeon, rammed through before Christmas. This bill is, in my opinion, not safeguarding children. It's removing the age that you have the ability to change your sexual identity from 18 down to 16, but not only that, you don't need to live as a trans person, the person you want to be, for 2 years beforehand. The worst bit, you do not need to be signed off by a medical doctor. So what will that do? That's not protecting trans people, I don't think. That's not protecting women. It's not protecting children. It's not protecting anyone, because all you will be able to do is change your identity at the click of a button. And there's even talk
Well, it certainly got you hot and bothered, and I bet most of our viewers.
I agree. Now, page 51 of the Daily Mail today, Claire, I think it was written for me. It's Dr. Michael Mosley. I'm addicted to sugary junk food, and this is how I deal with it.
How does he deal with it?
Well,
I'm not addicted to it, but I do like it.
But more importantly, how does Phil deal with it?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't drink, so he must get the sugar somewhere.
The way I deal with it is to have a nagging wife. That's how I deal with it. Who tells me?
Don't let him away with that.
Tells me
you can tell it's a load of nonsense. But anyway, tell us how he does it.
It asks to tell whether you're addicted to certain foods, and he's got some things. It's like when you start eating it, you can't stop and eat it more than you intended. That you keep on eating it even when you're not hungry. You crave the food when you're stressed. If it isn't in the house, you'll go to the nearest shop that sells it. I was ticking all these as I was going down. To be perfectly honest. What he says was that you can do certain things. Make sure you don't keep any of it in the house, because you're bound to eat it if you do.
Yeah. Oh, is it bound to eat it?
Yeah, very good. Seek out alternatives that might satisfy your craving. He switched from milk chocolate to dark chocolate, which helps a bit, because you get the chocolate hit, but it's got less sugar. Having an apple or a pear can sometimes satisfy the urge for sweetness. And to surf the urge is what he says. Surfing the urge means that rather than trying to fight it, ride it out by drinking a large glass of water. Now, it might work for him.
For heaven's sake,
but
there's a column in that.
If I'm thinking, you know, I want a Kit Kat, I'm not really sure that thinking I'll have a glass of water is going to do it for me, but that's what Dr. Michael Mosley says.
Well, I feel...
But he does say...
Try it later.
He says if you sleep less as well, you're going to eat more to keep yourself going.
Yeah,
so
that is true. Now, going back to your point, Claire, that people are turning to the papers for opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I've done that. I've got this in the Telegraph today from Jonathan Sumption there. We are all paying the terrible price for lockdown. And he's talking about the public finances, what's happening.
Was it £5,000 per person or something?
And this is what he's saying. The cost now, the National Audit Office has estimated the total cost of $376 billion, which works out at 5,900
each person.
490. Yeah, for every man, woman, and child in the land, and that is it. So let's not talk COVID.
Nope.
Let's talk about the political decision to lock down, and that is where the cost is. This is where this tax is coming from, and it's said. But just compare it with modest, Sweden. What it did, which it largely allowed a voluntary system if you went into lockdown, and how much are they paying back per head now?
Go on.
£460. So we are over 10 times the amount for lockdown. And this is the debate that we need to have with our politicians, the cost, and you never told people the cost.
Well, it's not even the financial cost, as you know, it's the human cost as well, you know, and geopolitics at the moment, because Sweden are the first country as well to come out and say, we're not doing net zero anymore. We're actually changing, we've had enough, we can't do it.
Claire Muldoon, thank you so much for
You're
joining us
very
this
welcome.
morning. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Now, there's clear, widespread concern about the volume of channel crossings and housing those asylum seekers in hotels.
Former Cabinet Minister David Davis believes he has a solution, and we're delighted to say that he joins us now. David, alls I can tell you, so many comments, our viewers writing in about, well, really, they're asking the question, what are we going to do? So they'll be delighted to hear what you think is possible and what we should be looking to do. So inform us.
Right. Well, the first problem we have is that the system's completely overwhelmed. I mean, you've got so many tens of thousands of people crossing the channel that the Home Office can't cope. And so you end up with it getting worse and worse because you're in 420 days, I think, before they get a decision, which means in which time they start court cases, they recruit lawyers, they start families. It becomes impossible to get rid of them. It's a classical problem that the longer you take, the worse the problem gets. The first thing we can do about it is to face up to the fact that in the last year, we've gone from almost no Albanian migrants to 12,000. Now, I say migrants, not asylum seekers, because Albania is a safe country. Albania actually has lost fewer cases in the European Court of Human Rights in the last 5 years than we have, or than France has. It's a perfectly safe country from the point of view of being an asylum seeker. You really can't claim asylum coming from there. Sweden, you were just talking about Sweden. I mean, in many ways, I'm sort of tempted to move to Sweden. It's so much more sensible than we are. But the Swedes basically take no asylum seekers from Albania because they say it's a safe country. Our law, for some reason, doesn't allow us to do that. So just remember that point for a second. Our law doesn't allow us just to say, you've got off the dinghy on Dover Beach. Your next stop is Stansted Airport, which is almost how it should be. The second thing they do is they claim to have been trafficked, that they are modern slaves. You know, we had this modern slavery legislation go through, well-intentioned legislation, but they claim they're trafficked. Now, look, let's apply a common sense test. If you have been trafficked, surely, and it's involuntary, surely the thing you want to do is to go straight back home, isn't it? It's not to sit in Manston or in a hotel in my constituency for years while we sort out what's happened to you. You want to go back home. And again, the legislation ought to allow that, and it doesn't. And it seems to me that we need to pass through the House of Commons a very short piece of legislation which doesn't say we're going to take people's asylum rights away, because been giving those for hundreds of years. We say if people come from a safe country, they go straight back to that safe country, not back to France or to Germany or wherever they've been en route, back to the originating country. And
do you think that would get through the House of Commons, David? I know it's a simple change. It sounds like a pragmatic change. Other countries are doing it. Would you get it through the House of Commons?
Yeah, I think we would. I mean, I've been writing to colleagues, you know about this because I've been writing to everybody about it. But I think this, look, bear in mind, look, I'm Mr. Asylum. I'm Mr. Rule of Law. I drive Philip mad as the wing of the Davis family that there's always in favour of people's liberties and so on. But the truth is, I don't want the system destroyed by abuse, you know. So if I'll vote for it, or any Tory will vote for it. This ought to unify the Tory party for a start. Bring us all behind one thing. Now, then your next question is, well, the Liberals will vote against it. I'm sure about that. But the Labour Party wants to get elected next time. And I can remember when I was Shadow Home Secretary, facing off against David Blunkett and Charles Clarke and John Reid, all trying to be very tough on migration. The idea that they would vote against a bill designed actually to make the migration system work properly seems to me to be implausible. You know, I think they're going to find themselves in a very difficult position. So I think it's doable. But the other key aspect of this is how we do it. Now, again, normally I'm very, very antagonistic to emergency legislation. You may remember, both of you, that when on March the 23rd of 2020, we had the emergency COVID legislation, I was basically the only person to argue against it because I think, you know, the House of Commons should take time over it. But I think actually we should give the government a few weeks to think it through. But I think it can reasonably go through in a few weeks.
Excellent.
It is an emergency. 12,000 people arising and abusing our system is an emergency. 12,000 people, by the way.
Well, we totally agree with you there, David Davis. That is something that needs to be looked at, and it's something that our viewers want a solution. You put one forward, and it is for politicians to take it forward. So, David Davis, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, coming up, go on.
Well, I was just going to say it's quite interesting because when I was doing some research about this last night, I stumbled across in 1995 Michael Howard, when he was Home Secretary, made a speech. It could have been written today. He was complaining about the asylum systems. The applications were going up to 4,500 a month, which is pretty much the rate that we've got here. And he said in his thing that he was going to do that. He was going to make sure people that were sent straight back to safe countries, and if they wanted to appeal, they'd have to appeal from that country. They couldn't do it from this country. And I just wonder what happened to Michael Howard's speech in 1995 when he was Home Secretary, because he was going to pass an asylum and immigration bill. I've got the speech in front of me that said he was going to do all of these things that I think people want to see happen. So the question is, my next bit of my research, I did this last night, was what happened to Michael Howard's asylum and immigration bill of 1995?
People want to know, Phil, what do we do of a Friday night? I'll tell you what we do of a Friday night. Phil is rummaging through online, I don't know, speeches of former politicians. That's the fun.
That's the kind of life I
Other
lead.
people are out, go in the bar, go in the pub, go in the pictures. No, he's looking at old political speeches. Thank you very much indeed. Anyway, coming up, we're talking about cryptocurrency and asking whether it has been exposed as the biggest ever get-rich-quick scam. So stay with us for that.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Hello
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Welcome back to the show. It's 11:25. As always, lots of you have been getting in touch with your opinions.
I have got one here. Michael says, Qatar is a sovereign state with its own laws. Why are all the media going nuts over their rules? It's simple. Don't go. Of course, it all started with FIFA corruption, but I wonder if any interviewer would be brave enough to ask any FIFA official how much voting bribe they received. That's where we want to know the answers.
And Anne asks, why is it the government that's always blamed for hospital waiting lists, asylum applications, etc.? Surely it's the government's job to appoint staff to do this work, and when it's not done, civil servants should get the blame. The front line work very hard, but the processes and red tape hold them back, and money is wasted by the millions. Thank you. Keep your views coming in.
Now, does cryptocurrency have a future, or has it just been exposed as the biggest ever get-rich-quick scam after the collapse of the FTX crypto exchange?
We're now joined by Danny Masters, chairman of CoinShares and director of the world's largest fully regulated Bitcoin fund and one of the world's leading experts on the subject. Danny, thank you for joining us. It looks very sunny there, wherever you are. And, I mean, how damaging is the collapse of FTX to the whole crypto industry?
Well, good morning, Phil. Good morning, Esther. Great to see you. I just wanted to go back to your last segment. I am drinking a little water here instead of the Kit Kat, so I think you might see I've lost a little weight, and it's definitely working. The FTX debacle is a very large black eye for the cryptocurrency industry, and I think we need to be clear about what has happened here. This is a human failure, a human tragedy in many ways. It's not a failure of crypto or blockchain per se, but it's multiple failures around governance, fiduciary duty, oversight, and other such things. In a nutshell, the second largest cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, run by an iconic leader, Sam Bankman-Fried, has sprung to prominence over the last few years and was trading many, many billions of dollars of fiat currency and cryptocurrency every day. And in an...
Oh, he seems to have frozen there.
Is he frozen with his glass of water?
Yeah, that's what it was. If he had have had a Kit Kat,
he would have been absolutely
fine. We'll come back to Danny, because like I said, he is one of the world's leading experts on this, and we want to know, does it have a future? But we'll look now at the case he was talking about, and how, interestingly, people got involved. You saw this company, his name now is Sam Bankman-Fried. Have we got Danny back?
I think we've got Danny back.
If we've got Danny back, we'll save you, Andrew. Andrew, we will have you back, but we'll go back to Danny.
Danny's back there. Danny, I think what I wanted to know really is that, you know, if people read the story about FTX, and they'll probably be worried people who have either invested in crypto or are thinking about investing in crypto, what would your advice be to people on the back of what's happened to FTX about what they should do to potentially protect themselves from any losses? I think we've lost him again.
Oh, no, here he is. Yeah. OK, it's dropping in and out, which is really, really unfortunate, because we'd like to bring him back, and maybe on another week if it's not this week there. So let's go back to this debacle. This company, a young group of lads, set it up and basically lost £27 billion. So come on.
Absolutely outrageous. And it's appropriate that Danny froze, because many of the assets in cryptocurrency are being frozen as we speak. It's a huge, huge story. One of the biggest ones. This is how it sort of broke last week, where he was sort of saying, and the rather appropriate name, Sam Bankman-Fried was probably a more appropriate way of doing it.
So we're now calling it fraud.
Well, it is fraud. And what's happened, you're right, Esther, is that what's happened, they got lots and lots of major celebrities came out to support it. And now what's happened, there's a class action lawsuit, which was announced on November the 17th, basically alleging all sorts of deceptive means about investing. And the person who's now taken over as CEO is John Ray III, who was a veteran insolvency professional, and he basically was in charge of winding down Enron and stuff like that, you might remember. And he says, never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information occurred here.
But what happened was, you know, here you've got this young lad, people are wishing they understood it. He obviously paid lots, and you've got Tony Blair there, you've got Bill Clinton there, you've got superstars and models there, all saying, isn't it a wonderful thing to be doing and investing in? And most of them don't know how cryptocurrency works at all. And that's sort of the problem. Nobody knew how it worked. They just wanted to think that you could make money quickly on it.
And that's the real problem, because you saw massive, it's been a roller coaster ride in terms of the huge increase, but also the huge decreases as a result. And lots of celebrities come out. We talked about Kim Kardashian coming out with her own problems about cryptocurrency on that sort of basis. What happens is people want to get rich quick. And the easiest way of being a cryptocurrency millionaire is to start off by being a billionaire, because you can lose an absolute fortune. So you have to understand it. The problem for a lot of it is not regulated. I know Danny did his own sort of regulations thing on that sort of basis, but it's incredibly volatile. And you'll see the highs and lows. If we bought cryptocurrency a year ago to this day, it would have fallen down by 77% just about to where we are today. If you look at the prices, it was $69,000 this time last year. It's now about, I think it's about sort of 16 or things like that on sort of basis.
So you're a futurist, Andrew. Is cryptocurrencies, are they here to stay? Do you think or is this the beginning of the end? I mean, but, you know, obviously during the financial crash, Lehman Brothers went bust. Nobody stopped investing in banks on the back of it. Or
Northern Rock.
Yeah, Northern Rock and stuff.
What we need, and it's starting to happen, is that it needs to be regulated. We need to make sure that people don't invest in this sort of quick, get-rich-quick scheme. The idea that you have a centralised digital ledger, which is all off the back of the blockchain, makes a lot of sense. So the reason it started, it's the wonderful chap called, it may not be a chap, it might be just a group of people called Satoshi Nakamoto. And it started when the banks basically collapsed after the banking crisis. So they tried to work on this basis where you can circumvent the banks. So the principle is absolutely right, but it needs to be regulated. And you need to make sure that you invest and only invest what you're happy to do at the current time. line.
And that's the whole thing, though. It was meant to be like individuals' money rather than countries, rather than banks. So some people might be cynical and say, well, this was a ploy because if ever there was a bloody nose given to an industry, it's this one. Is it because, and maybe this is conspiracy theory talk, they want to get rid of cryptocurrency? Most countries don't want it. What do you think?
Yeah, well, there might be something in that. Anyway,
it's a big threat, absolutely. And Donald Trump called it a big scam, is what he said. So make sure it didn't devalue the dollar as the universal currency. So you're right.
Thank you for joining us. Well, hopefully we'll try and get Danny on next week to see if he can share his expertise with us then.
So we're now got time for the news with the wonderful Ray. But in the next, after the news, we're going to speak to a wonderful young chap who's brought forward a new platform because he thinks the government doesn't have the right vision for young people, and he's got his ideas. But as I said, first time to your news headlines with Ray.
Good morning. It's 11:33. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar, trying to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. On the eve of the event, he also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for.
I'm European. Actually, I am European. Not just I feel European. I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons.
The Foreign Secretary is warning that the threat from Iran's nuclear program is more advanced than ever before. Speaking at a security conference in Bahrain, James Cleverly stressed Britain's determination to stop the strict Islamic country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. He also criticised Iran's rulers for supplying Russia with drones, which have been used to launch attacks against civilians in Ukraine. The search for a woman who was swept into a river has resumed in Aberdeenshire. It's believed she was trying to rescue a dog in the River Don at Moneymusk when she got into difficulty last night. Heavy rain in the east of Scotland triggered several severe flood warnings, and wet weather is continuing to cause travel disruptions today. Delegates have failed to reach a deal at COP27, forcing an extension of the climate summit in Egypt. Talks this weekend will focus on how poorer countries affected by global warming should be compensated. 134 developing nations want a special fund to be set up to help them cope with loss and damage due to droughts, floods and wildfires. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back to Esther and Philip in just a moment.
Thanks, Ray. There's a new platform which is going to be launched called Inflamer Media, which provides a voice for young people who feel the government doesn't provide a vision for their future.
Well, we're now joined by the founder of Inflamer, Jack Anderson. Fantastic name. And is that what you're trying to do? Inflame people?
Well, not people. I think it's not deliberately inflammatory. It's sort of inherently inflammatory because...
But you thought of the name, though, you didn't?
Oh, I did think of the name, yeah, of course. But I think just because of the content and because of the system that we operate in, the fact that British politics is sort of so restricted in terms of the dissenting voices that can be, talked about in the media and, in terms of the politicians that we have, the general political debate, I feel, in Britain is quite restricted.
So does this come into a free speech arena then? So is it more about free speech, or is it that you absolutely think that the people who are governing the country now really aren't thinking about sort of not only the youth, but actually the long-term future of the country? It's too myopic. They're just thinking day to day.
I mean, I think it's definitely both. Free speech plays a part in it, but in terms of the long-term vision, we have politicians who generally think the same. They have the same background. They all know each other. It's a very sort of cosy, nepotistic club. So Inflamer Media is sort of based on the fact that, about 70% of people think that Britain is headed in the wrong direction.
So what's the right direction for you?
Well, this is...
Come on, tell us, what's the right direction?
Well, the right direction for me would be a more meritocratic system, a system in which, nepotism would be outlawed, effectively. You're
I'm raising eyebrows. I'm thinking, where is the nepotism there? So I don't know anybody, not anybody. Phil doesn't know anybody. So is it connections? Is it social connections rather than family connection? What is it? Or is it just groupthink?
I think it's a combination. I mean, the best example I would give you of nepotism is the Johnson family. Boris Johnson.
Okay, good point.
His brother was a minister. His sister's a journalist, and then his father, does whatever he does. So we definitely have, a system that is based on wealth and nepotism in this country and connections. Yeah, but that all comes through. That they all go to the same schools. They all hang out.
So are you anti-establishment?
I'm definitely anti-establishment, yes.
And how do we, because there's a lot that I'd agree with what you say there, how do we open it up to other people? So I get that, and absolutely, you don't want to just have the same people dictating everything. But what I want to know is, what vision then has your platform got? How would it break the problems of the current system of sort of, elections, people standing to be an MP, getting involved in the system? How would you change it?
Well, the first and most important would be you'd have to break the two-party system. That would have to go. It's incredibly difficult. There are the growth of minor parties at the minute, but I'm not sure that they're going to go and have, as much success as they might hope to. So it definitely won't be, an overnight or even a couple of years things. It will be probably a decade or two that this, sort of change will have to take place because the system and parties are so entrenched.
I just wondered, I think probably in Parliament now there's probably less people there now, or fewer people there that's parents were an MP. I think that is breaking down. And I think there are more younger people getting into Parliament now than ever before. I just wondered whether or not the problem wasn't about the people getting in there, but about how many people vote. And of course, older people vote in much higher volumes than younger people, and so therefore inevitably politicians are going to want to look after the people who vote rather than the people who don't. So it's not the onus on younger people to go out there and vote, and then their voice would be a bit stronger.
Well, I think if you gave young people a decent option to vote for, they probably would. You talk about the age of politicians. The average age in the House of Commons is about 50. In the House of Lords, it's about 71. Which is shocking, because the average age is about 35 in terms of the general country.
Except the House of Lords is more scrutiny. That's meant to be people who've had a wonderful life, very educated, can give an overview. So the House of Lords, provides...
that would be abolished in our vision.
And then, OK, yeah, that's fine. And then
I've got some sympathy for that as well.
And people also say, and this is the counter-argument, that we want politicians who've done something before, who've come to the House with experience and a job, whether it's a teacher, a doctor, worked in the city, set up a business. So you're balancing, you're trading there, aren't you, experience with youth. Would you go back to just youth and no experience?
No, I'm not calling for, older people to just, completely have no input. But the embrace of younger people definitely needs to happen. If you look back, a couple hundred years ago in terms of great historical figures, Alexander the Great was 20, William Pitt the Younger was 24.
Life expectancy was probably only about 35 then.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, it's not true. People did, live shorter lives, but because, the people obviously did die younger. If you lived a healthy life, you would probably die about 70 years of age. Now, life expectancy is about 80 and only climbing.
So, Jack Anderton there, I want to thank you for coming on today. I think this is the start of a much bigger debate, but Inflamer is your platform. That's what you want to do, is galvanise young people to have a different view of the future.
We wish you well with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we'll enter the tail end of the show by talking to the mother of 8 dogs about how and why she treats them to McDonald's, Starbucks and so-called Bark Day parties.
She looks after them better than you look after me.
Well, I won't get into that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's nearly 11:45. The day's just been racing away here. But now it's time to look at the biggest stories from the world of sport and showbiz. And to do that, we're delighted to say we're joined by Aidan McGee and Hayley Palmer. So let's start off with, because everybody's been talking about this, the first person to be voted out of the jungle. And was it a surprise?
Not a surprise, no. I found Charlene to be very bossy.
Really?
Like myself. Yeah.
Would it have been Battle of the Bossy Women?
Yeah, I'm a Leo, I can't help it. But you know what? I think she had a journalistic head on, didn't she? And I felt she kind of went in a bit too much. I think she needed to relax and just enjoy it the whole time. But you know what? The loose women, they seem to come out first, don't they? Kate Adams on Strictly, and now this. So.
Well, because at the start, everyone would have expected Matt Hancock to be the first.
Well, that's what I thought, really.
But he's doing quite well, isn't he?
But did you see last night, Boy George? He kind of said to him, look, like, I'm not feeling this, like, I'm not really getting on with you. So there is a bit of, you know...
But Boy George, he's sort of trying to take the moral high ground with Matt Hancock, but of course he's got his own past, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Aidan's chimed straight in there. So you know this,
2009, wasn't it?
Here we go.
Didn't he hit someone with a pipe or something like that?
Wrong story. I was thinking of something much worse than that.
Oh, really?
But anyway, allegedly. But the thing is, when that was brought up with Boy George...
Which was what? What was it?
His court case.
Yeah.
He said that he thought that was inappropriate, that it was brought up. But is it OK for Boy George then to ask everyone else about their past?
Exactly.
But he doesn't like it when it happens to him. Boy George fan, but I did think, oh...
And this is where, in a way, and this is why I thought Matt would do well, because... Politicians are constantly under the spotlight. Everything has to be transparent. Everybody's always got to have an opinion. You've got to smile whether people are saying horrible things to you or don't agree with you. Those other contestants have probably never had the groundwork and the training, in a way, that Matt Hancock, a politician, had to go in there, and he just gets on with things. And he thought, oh, well, you know, just head down and knuckle down, as it were, get on, and not sort of, oh, it's all a bit cold and, oh, there's spiders. He just cracked on with the job.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, when Boy George was saying to him last night, I don't really like you, he was kind of like, OK, at least you're being honest, whereas I think I would have burst into tears. So, you know, yeah, it's interesting TV anyway.
It certainly is.
Has it got popularity at all? Matt Hancock over the last week or so?
Definitely. People are like, oh, he's not that bad.
But we're going to come back to that.
We're going to come back to it because we've got a story just for Hayley, really. So we know how much she loves her dog.
Yeah.
Pet owners the world over are often guilty of overindulging their four-legged friends. Is that you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, some might say our next guest truly takes the dog biscuit.
So Bethany Stokey is mother to 8 Staffordshire Bull Terrier mixes, and it's fair to say they're spoiled rotten, with Bark Day parties, trips to McDonald's and Starbucks and doggy cafes, which she broadcasts on social media.
Oh, we're delighted to say that she joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us, Bethany. How come you've got to the point where you're taking your dogs out for special treats to Starbucks and the like? How on earth did you decide that was a good thing to do?
Originally, I thought birthday party, we get to go and celebrate them out. So I figured, why don't the dogs? And then Starbucks do their own version of a puppuccino for the dogs. So we started doing that, and then we added McDonald's in last year, just as a one-off in a treat.
And then they've got names here. We've got Kira, Rio, Ziggy, Ziva, Max, Dexter, Misty, and I think that is Mitzi. And you've called Rio and Ziggy are known as the Cray twins. Why is that?
Oh, they're always the siblings, and they are always up to no good, those two.
What I want to know, Bethany, is, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an expert on dogs, but I always thought that Staffordshire Bull Terriers were sort of quite fearsome dogs that people would be petrified of. I just wondered, what do people make of it when you arrive at Starbucks with 8 Staffordshire Bull Terriers? I think if I was a customer, I'd be running out the door.
No, I do get a few funny looks. Yes, obviously everyone knows the breed history. They were fighting dogs. But at the same time, with good training and with good love and a family life, they really do shine through for amazing family pets. They're wanting to be in, they're wanting to say hello, to shine the...
But with 8 dogs, which must take up quite a bit of time, have they squeezed everybody else out of your life? Have you only time for your dogs?
Oh, no, not at all. A lot of training went into them, a lot of time does go into them, but I still have plenty of time to live my life. I do work around dogs as well, so they do get to come with me to work and everything, which is good.
And reaction, I know Phil picked up on this, but reaction as you're out and about with your gang of 8?
We get a few funny looks, to say the least, but to be fair, I think with them all being really well behaved, I do a lot of training with them where I'll get them up on a bench or up on a little tree and I'll take a photo of them, and they'll do that in front of people, and I get quite a lot of people, oh, can we take a photo of the dogs? Oh, can we say hi to the dogs? So I think the fact that they're well-mannered and they're well-social helps the public view on them to be so many as well.
Bethany, thanks so much for joining us with you and your dogs. And the most spoiled. Do we always just find out who's got the most spoiled dog?
Yes, has Bethany got the most spoiled, or has any one of our viewers got even more spoiled dogs than that? Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Aidan. I do student rents, and I got an application last year for this student who wanted to bring 4 husky dogs into 1 bedroom. I said, do you take dogs? I said, yeah, I take 1 dog per household. But she wanted to put 4 husky dogs in a room, a medium-sized bedroom in a house in Stoke-on-Trent. I don't know where she was going to take them sledding. That's what she said. It's not a joke, seriously. I had to turn them down because it's a bit rough on the other tenants. Do you spoil your dog?
My dog's got a dog advent calendar this year.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, wow. Beat that.
So you rent houses as well as a sports presenter?
And do comedy, yeah.
And do but huskies actually are a wild dog. They shouldn't have had 4 in a house.
Where do you go sledding in Stoke-on-Trent? I mean, I thought I knew the area well. Can't think of anywhere you do. Anyway, the World Cup starts tomorrow. I know. Well, Qatar against Ecuador is the game kicking off. Someone said to me last night, can you name 3 Qatar players? I said, Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Jimi Hendrix. See?
I've already heard this. Second time put through that.
I think that was quite good.
Thanks very much indeed. I'll invite you back next week. Massive game tomorrow. But the match was actually brought forward a couple of months ago because they realised it probably wasn't a good idea to not have the hosts on the first game. But no, I think the actual football team in Qatar was a bit of an afterthought. So they kick off at 4 o'clock. It's England on Monday, of course. We had the beer ban in the last 48 hours as well.
But only at the stadium. You can drink elsewhere.
Yeah, you can at the fan parks. I mean, look, the thing you have to consider here is that, yes, they've moved the goalposts. It's evident that FIFA aren't in control of their own tournament. But think about it. What do you guess is the population of Qatar?
It's about 280,000.
No, it's 2.9 million.
No. Well, they're not citizens, they're workers coming in.
Fine. But 1.2 million people will be converging on Qatar for the World Cup. That's a third, or nearly a third of their population. So imagine if, what's ours, 64? Imagine if 20 million people came here for the World Cup. We probably wouldn't be happy with 20 million people drinking, would we?
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's only my opinion.
I think lots of people would say, look, you get the reputation of football fans and everything. Why don't we do it in this country? Stop them drinking it. Yeah, I think lots of people would probably think that.
But you can drink in corporate areas, which boxes. The price of boxes start at £19,000.
Are you going to watch football?
No, I'll be watching something much more interesting, like Strictly.
Oh, my.
So go on.
Well, I've already predicted the winner this year, Kim Marsh, and I still stand by that.
Really?
But absolutely. But I want to talk about the fact that Gemma and Luca have split from Love Island, because I did see that coming. As you know, I'm always out, and I've seen Luca by himself at the last two events, and I thought, this doesn't look right to me. Now they've announced the split. Well, Gemma announced the split first. Apparently he woke up, saw these messages. But come on, she went on Love Island for the fashion deal, didn't she? She went on there for work purposes. It's so obvious, and I can't believe people fall for it.
What didn't look right, though? When you say it didn't look right, what
it was just
body language?
She was very cold on Love Island.
Right.
It's kind of her personality. But you could just tell by the body language. You could tell it wasn't for real.
So, in a way, it worked for her. She went on, she knew what she was doing, which is same as Matt Hancock. She had a purpose, a mission. She wanted a swimsuit range, and she got it. Now, somebody else who's in charge of her own life, Taylor Swift, somebody else who knows where she's going. What's happening there?
Well, apparently there was 20 million people trying to get 200 tickets. So
How many people?
20 million people.
Gosh,
insane.
High demand.
But apparently it was reselling the tickets £20,000, which who has that money to go and see Taylor Swift? I'm sorry, I just about paid £25.
For a grand less, you get a corporate box at Qatar.
There we go.
You can drink.
It's outrageous how much it is to see these stars perform. I mean, I don't think I love anyone enough to pay more than £50.
Well, at least there must be a massive fan. If they're prepared to pay that, they must be a massive fan, mustn't they? So, you know...
Who goes that far? I think it's outrageous.
Would you pay a tenner to watch me do stand-up?
No. We're all agreed on that. So anyway, Hayley's always given us predictions. Who's going to win the World Cup?
You talking about Mystic McGee here?
Yeah.
OK, well, I've drawn Brazil in the sweepstake. I've actually got a crystal ball. I bought a crystal ball this week. I noticed it to the office. I actually have it. It's £10. I'm playing on expenses. I've also got a receipt in case it starts turning up duff predictions. But I've got Brazil. I think Brazil looks strong. I think Argentina, France... Don't write off England. Do you know why? Because it's such an unpopular... It'd be England's luck just to win the most unpopular and most unwanted World Cup ever. I mean, when they do win it, we'll say
it's never unpopular winning a World Cup, is it?
We want to mention the proper sport, Rugby League, World Cup final today.
No,
Australia.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Australia and Samoa.
It's just a pity England aren't there, do you not think?
I can't believe they lost to Samoa in the semi-final.
Well, after beating them in the first game, exactly. But it just shows how teams can get stronger as the tournament goes on. The problem they had is that they stretched this tournament over 6 weeks, so you can be a different incarnation of each team going. We had the wheelchair...
England won that last night.
That's right, yeah, exactly. It's quite rare. We won the T20 last week. We've had a lot of World Cup finals in the last week or so, haven't we? And the semi-finals and stuff. We're hoping the football team can lift us over the line this time.
Aidan, Hayley, thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Another cracking show, and obviously with all your views and all your comments, it makes it even a better show, so thank you very much. Well, we'll be back next week. Can't wait to see you. Don't go anywhere, because it's Alistair Stewart and friends, and he's got lots coming up. But first, it's time for the weather.
Good morning, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest broadcast from the Met Office. We do have some rain through the course of the day, particularly across the east and later on across the west. This will be followed by showers into Sunday. Temperatures around average. We are between weather systems at the moment, but it doesn't take long before further Atlantic systems move in, pushing their way eastwards, bringing strong winds and some heavy rain at times, and that continues into next week. So this morning, a cold, frosty start across some western areas, but some sunshine here too. Across the east, cloudy skies, some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, so quite a cold feel to the morning. As we go through the day and into the afternoon, it stays cloudy and grey across the east of the UK. This brighter, sunnier spot across parts of Scotland into Wales and the West Country before rain arrives across Northern Ireland. Under the cloud, temperatures 8 or 9 Celsius, in the sunshine 11 or 12. So if you get in that sunshine, it won't feel too bad, but quite chilly elsewhere, lower than on Friday. Through the evening time, this band of rain will continue to push its way eastward. We could see some heavy bursts at times, some strong winds too, and then this will interact with the colder air across the mountains of Scotland, giving some snow, and then overnight showers follow. Under the clearer slots, temperatures down to around 4 or 5 Celsius, but for many 6 to 8 degrees, so not quite as cold as the night just gone. A wet start across eastern areas, the rain pushes out into the North Sea, blustery showers follow. Best of the sunshine across central and southern areas, showers most frequent across the north and the west, some hail, some thunder in there, still falling as sleet and snow over the higher ground of Scotland in particular. And it will feel quite chilly, temperatures highs around 11 or 12 in the southwest, but elsewhere struggling to get into double figures. And looking into the beginning of next week, it stays fairly unsettled. Longer spells of rain on Monday, followed by showers Tuesday and Wednesday. And temperatures generally stay around average for the time of year. I'll see you again soon.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
news channel.